Most men spend years trying to understand what a woman wants, yet they completely miss the moments when she's quietly revealing everything. They wait for obvious signs. They look for dramatic confessions. They search for perfect words. But real emotional attraction rarely announces itself that way. It whispers. It tests. It observes. And sometimes, if she truly wants intimacy, not just physical closeness, but emotional connection, she'll ask you two simple questions. Questions that seem ordinary on the surface but carry extraordinary psychological meaning underneath. Here's what most men never realize. These questions are almost never about the answers themselves. They're about who you become while answering them. She's not collecting information. She's studying your emotional world. She's trying to discover whether you're someone she can trust with hers. And if you misunderstand these moments, you may accidentally push away someone who was preparing to let you into the deepest parts of her life. Human behavior has fascinated psychologists for decades. Researchers studying attachment, vulnerability, and emotional bonding have consistently found that meaningful relationships are built not merely through attraction, but through emotional safety, curiosity, and reciprocal self-disclosure. The strongest connections don't begin with grand romantic gestures. They begin with conversations that quietly reveal character. After observing thousands of relationship dynamics, one pattern appears repeatedly. When a woman genuinely wants deeper intimacy, her communication changes. She stops asking surface-level questions designed to fill silence. Instead, she begins asking questions that uncover your emotional landscape. She wants to know how you think, what shaped you, how you handle pain, how you respond to uncertainty, and whether your confidence is authentic or simply a performance. This isn't manipulation. It's protection. Every human being carries invisible emotional scars. Women often become highly attentive to emotional consistency because trust matters more than excitement in long-term connection. Attraction may open the door, but emotional security determines whether she stays inside. And this is where things become fascinating. The first question she often asks is surprisingly simple. What are you really looking for? Most men hear this question and immediately think it's about relationships, commitment, or dating labels. They rush into logical explanations. I'm just seeing where things go. I'm looking for someone loyal. I don't know yet. But psychologically, she isn't asking for a dating profile summary. She's asking whether your intentions match your actions. She's asking whether you're emotionally available or emotionally hiding. She's asking whether you're capable of honesty before vulnerability becomes expensive. Imagine this. You've been talking for weeks. The chemistry is obvious. The conversations have become longer. She laughs more easily around you. She begins sharing stories from her childhood. Then one evening she looks at you and quietly asks, "So, what are you really looking for?" Most men panic because they believe they're being evaluated. In reality, she is evaluating something much deeper than commitment. She's measuring congruence. Do your words align with your energy? Can you communicate without pretending? Can you answer honestly even if honesty feels risky? Women often associate emotional consistency with safety. If your answer constantly changes depending on what you think she wants to hear, uncertainty begins replacing attraction. But here's what most men never realize. Confidence isn't having the perfect answer. Confidence is being comfortable telling the truthful one. A man who says, "I'm looking for something meaningful, but I believe healthy relationships grow naturally rather than being forced," communicates emotional maturity. Not because those exact words are magical, but because they reveal clarity. Clarity creates trust. Trust creates emotional intimacy. The next point changes everything. The second question she often asks carries even greater psychological weight. What was your last relationship like? Again, most men misunderstand it. They think she's asking for gossip, or comparisons, or details about an ex. She's not. She's asking one silent question hidden beneath all the others. Have you healed? Think about that carefully. She's trying to understand how you process disappointment. Do you blame everyone else? Do you avoid responsibility? Do you speak with bitterness? Or have you transformed pain into wisdom? Psychology teaches us that unresolved emotional experiences frequently repeat themselves in future relationships. People who never process emotional wounds often recreate them unconsciously. She knows this instinctively. She isn't interviewing your past. She's predicting her future. Picture a woman sitting across from a man she genuinely likes. She asks about his previous relationship. Instead of attacking his former partner, he calmly explains that they wanted different futures, that both people made mistakes, and that the experience taught him the importance of communication. Immediately, something changes inside her. Not because his past was perfect, but because his emotional regulation suggests stability. Emotional maturity is attractive because it lowers uncertainty. And uncertainty is one of the greatest enemies of intimacy. There's another reason nobody talks about. When a woman begins asking deeper questions, she's often becoming emotionally invested herself. People naturally become curious about futures they can imagine. If she sees no emotional potential, she usually keeps conversations casual. Favorite movies. Weekend plans. Random jokes. But when curiosity becomes personal. What scares you? What motivates you? What did you learn from your past? Her emotional investment is increasing. She's mentally exploring whether your worlds could eventually merge. This is why listening becomes more important than impressing. Most men enter conversations trying to perform. Emotionally intelligent men enter conversations trying to connect. Those are completely different goals. Imagine two different responses. The first man spends 10 minutes explaining why he's successful, independent, and admired. The second man answers honestly, asks thoughtful questions back, listens carefully, remembers details, and responds with genuine curiosity. Who creates stronger intimacy? Usually the second. Because intimacy grows through mutual understanding, not one-sided admiration. And this is where psychology reveals something powerful. People don't remember every sentence you spoke. They remember how emotionally safe they felt while speaking with you. That feeling becomes associated with your presence. Another hidden psychological pattern appears when she asks questions that reveal your values instead of your achievements. She may ask, "What makes you happiest? What kind of family did you grow up in? What would you do if money wasn't an issue?" These questions aren't random. They're identity questions. She wants to understand your internal compass. Achievements can impress. Values predict behavior. Behavior determines relationship quality. Imagine a man who constantly talks about money, status, and competition. Now imagine another who talks about growth, loyalty, purpose, and meaningful relationships. Neither conversation guarantees compatibility. But one often communicates emotional depth more naturally than the other. Women seeking genuine intimacy frequently prioritize emotional reliability over temporary excitement. That doesn't mean attraction disappears. It means attraction evolves. Excitement captures attention. Character keeps it. But here's what most men never realize. Authenticity is surprisingly rare. Many people spend years hiding behind carefully constructed personalities. They become whatever they think others desire. Yet intimacy requires exactly the opposite. It requires being seen. That can feel terrifying. Because once someone sees the real you, rejection feels personal. Yet paradoxically, vulnerability handled with confidence often strengthens attraction rather than weakening it. This doesn't mean oversharing. Healthy vulnerability isn't emotional dumping. It's honest communication with emotional responsibility. Imagine saying, "I've made mistakes before, but I've learned a lot from them." Those words carry strength. Not because they're dramatic. Because they reveal accountability. Accountability signals growth. Growth signals emotional security. And emotional security creates space for intimacy. Let's explore another fascinating behavior. Sometimes she asks seemingly playful questions. If you could change one thing about your life, what would it be? What are you afraid of? When was the last time you cried? Many men immediately try to appear invincible. They avoid emotional honesty because they mistake vulnerability for weakness. Ironically, psychology often demonstrates the opposite. People generally trust those who acknowledge human imperfection while maintaining emotional stability. The strongest people rarely pretend they've never struggled. They simply refuse to let struggle define them. Picture a conversation where you admit that failure once taught you resilience. Notice the difference between weakness and wisdom. Weakness seeks rescue. Wisdom shares perspective. Women interested in emotional intimacy are usually searching for wisdom, not perfection. There's another layer hiding beneath all this. Intimacy grows when curiosity becomes mutual. If she asks meaningful questions but you never ask her anything equally thoughtful, the emotional exchange becomes unbalanced. Healthy connection is reciprocal. Instead of immediately changing the topic, become curious. What about you? What made you ask that? I'd genuinely like to hear your perspective. These responses invite emotional partnership instead of emotional performance. People feel valued when they're understood. They feel connected when understanding flows both directions. And this is where relationships quietly transform. Two strangers become emotionally familiar. Two conversations become meaningful rituals. Two independent lives slowly develop shared emotional experiences. None of this happens through tricks. It happens through presence. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you. Not waiting for their turn. Not checking their phone. Not preparing clever responses. Just listening. How did that make you feel? Probably respected. Seen. Important. Now imagine becoming that person consistently. Psychological attraction deepens because people naturally move toward environments where they feel emotionally accepted. Acceptance is rare. Attention is common. Anyone can give attention. Few people provide genuine emotional presence. And that's why presence has become one of the most attractive qualities a person can develop. As these conversations continue, another shift begins occurring. She starts revealing herself. Notice something remarkable about human psychology. People generally disclose emotional information gradually. Small vulnerability leads to small vulnerability. Trust builds. Then deeper trust follows. If she begins telling you stories she doesn't usually tell other people. If she shares insecurities. If she asks about your emotional world. These are often signs that psychological intimacy is replacing superficial attraction. Protect those moments. Never use vulnerability against someone. Never mock emotional honesty. Never reward openness with judgment. Because emotional safety, once broken, can take years to rebuild. And this brings us to perhaps the biggest misunderstanding men have about intimacy. Many believe intimacy starts with physical closeness. Psychology repeatedly suggests something different. Physical closeness often becomes meaningful because emotional closeness already exists. Without emotional connection, physical attraction may feel exciting. With emotional connection, physical affection becomes profoundly significant. That's why those two simple questions matter so much. What are you really looking for? What was your last relationship like? They're not just conversations. They're invitations. Invitations to reveal your character. Invitations to demonstrate emotional maturity. Invitations to show whether your confidence is rooted in authenticity rather than image. The men who answer thoughtfully aren't trying to impress. They're trying to communicate honestly. Ironically, honesty often becomes far more attractive than perfection. Now imagine your future conversations changing because you recognize these hidden psychological signals. Instead of feeling pressured, you feel calm. Instead of performing, you become present. Instead of chasing approval, you build understanding. That single shift changes everything. Because confidence isn't speaking louder. Confidence is remaining emotionally grounded while someone gradually discovers who you really are. Here's the emotional truth that many people spend years learning. Real intimacy cannot be forced. It cannot be manipulated. It cannot be manufactured through clever techniques or memorized lines. It grows when two people consistently experience emotional safety, mutual curiosity, respect, honesty, and genuine understanding. If she begins asking those deeper questions, don't rush to give perfect answers. Give real ones. Listen as much as you speak. Be proud of your growth instead of pretending you've never struggled. Allow your character to become more persuasive than your image. Because the strongest relationships are rarely built by people who never experienced fear. They're built by people who chose authenticity despite fear. And that's the lesson every emotionally intelligent man eventually discovers. A woman who truly wants intimacy isn't searching for the richest man, the loudest man, or the most impressive man in the room. She's searching for someone whose words, emotions, and actions create peace instead of confusion. Someone whose confidence doesn't require pretending. Someone who understands that emotional strength includes compassion. Someone who recognizes that trust is earned quietly, one honest conversation at a time. So the next time she looks into your eyes and asks one of those simple questions, don't dismiss it as casual conversation. Understand what she's really asking. She's asking whether your heart is as genuine as your smile. Whether your confidence is as real as your appearance. Whether your future is built on emotional integrity rather than empty performance. Answer with honesty. Respond with presence. Lead with emotional intelligence. Because in the end, the deepest attraction isn't created by saying exactly what someone wants to hear. It's created by becoming someone whose authenticity makes another person feel safe enough to reveal their own.